right, Sunny, we're just gonna give it a couple minutes. We're waiting on one more member, so we'll adjourn, or we'll begin here in about 2 or 3 minutes.
No worries on my end. Thank you for the update.
You.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Let's go ahead and convene this meeting of the Wolf Deprivation Compensation and Financial Assistance Committee. Go ahead and start with some introductions. I'm Deschutes County Commissioner Phil Channing. Currently serving as your interim chair for the committee for 6 months.
Ethan O'Brien. I am one of the representatives of ranches.
John Leeson. I am also one of the representatives for the ranchers and livestock producers.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Nick Leon, County Administrator.
And I'm Donna Harris. I'm on the committee as a wolf advocate.
And hi, Sunny. Good to see you on the video. Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager.
Good to see all of you.
Should we have Sunny introduce yourself now? Or thanks for joining us today, Sunny.
Yeah, thank you all. I apologize I can't be there in person, but I'm the adult on deck tonight. My wife works at the hospital in 12-hour shifts, so that makes it a little rough with the kids. I'm Sunny Summers. I'm a senior policy advisor for the Oregon Department of Agriculture. I've been with the agency for almost 18 years now, and I've done a little bit of everything. I started out in our pesticide enforcement program. If you remember the awful pesticide use reporting system that the state had back in the day, I had to do that. And then they moved me over to be an investigator, but I'm really much better at critiquing other people's work. So they made me a case reviewer and helped update their database system that they use to track their cases. And then when all things cannabis kind of blew up in the state, I moved into the director's office to do cannabis policy, both hemp and marijuana. And now I have other duties as assigned to include things like the wolf depredation grant, canola, which is a coexistence issue both here in the Valley and in your area, working with growers in your area as well, up in Jefferson County primarily. So a little bit of a Jill of all trades.
And it sounds like they call you out to be the troubleshooter on emerging issues.
Or I just have a giant kick me sign on my back. I like yours. Yours sounds nicer.
There you go. looking forward to your presentation in a couple of minutes. Great. Oh, perfect timing.
Great.
We were just doing a round of introductions. Sarah Lee, you want to just?
Oh, I'm Sarah Lee. Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Did you guys eat all the pizza?
We did.
Yeah,
It's
so
right over there.
No, there's some left, plenty left.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I thought you said, did we eat a little? We ate a little pizza. Okay, so next item on our agenda is approval or review and approval of the June 26, 2023 minutes. And the minutes were in your packet. I hope everyone had a chance to review them or to review them to the extent you wanted to. And would love to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that we adopt the minutes. Approve, adopt, yeah, approve.
A second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Minutes approved. Okay. Sunny, we are ready to jump into the presentation on the committee grant process. And
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for being here to share your share how things work for this program over at ODA, and also to share some of the experience from other counties with us.
Absolutely. And so I have a short PowerPoint. I think that we can be fairly informal given the size of the group here. And so I think I'll go through the PowerPoint and then I'll give you the plain language, non-Govy speak version of how we go through the process every year. So we'll start with the PowerPoint though. Maybe if Jen can give me permission to share my screen.
Sure. I don't use this system very often.
You want us to migrate your stuff to that seat?
Yeah,
we can. If you have to go back and forth, we can.
Did that work for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I will move over here.
Okay, so hopefully y'all are seeing the full presentation version. Okay. We've gone over that. So some of this maybe you already know. And I will just caveat this, that I've been working on this for like the last 2 years. So I have never helped a committee get set up. So this is, that all happened prior to me starting to work on the program. So we're in it together. So back in June 2011, the legislature passed House Bill 3560, which basically created the depredation program. And it's to help ODF and W's, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife's wolf plan, to try and help reduce conflicts between wolves and livestock. So that's the preventative portion of the grant. So what can we do to prevent issues between the wolves and livestock? And then there's also a depredation portion of the grant to aid those livestock producers who do end up having loss due to wolves. So it's kind of a two-parter, and it gets confusing sometimes because the prevention is for what's coming in the future, and the depredation is looking back at what happened last year and what livestock were depredated, killed due to the wolves. And basically it's a pass-through program where ODA takes that money and passes it through to the counties. The counties have to have a wolf commission, and we'll talk about what that is a little bit more. But basically, again, it's going to, the money can be used for payment for livestock or working dogs who are killed or injured by wolves, and that has to be confirmed by ODF and W staff. So producers, the ranchers will have to have a report from ODF and W to to document that death or injury was due to wolves. It can be used as payment to prevent wolves from attacking livestock, and that has been anything from fladry, so like tying things to fences so they flap in the wind. Those I don't remember what they're called, but like at car dealerships, those things that are inflated with air and they kind of look like a little person and they bounce back and forth. Range riding. There's a lot of different ways that counties have used those monies to meet this category, to include conferences, bringing livestock producers in and having folks from other areas come in and talk about what has been successful in their area to minimize those negative interactions. The money can be used for missing, and we're one of the few states that pays for missing. And I'll tell you, this year we didn't pay for any. So we prioritize the depredation and the prevention. And then if there's money left over, we will apply it towards the missing. And then counties can receive some money to cover allowable expenses for operating the program. So the requirements for a county to be able to apply for the grants is create a committee. So that is you all. Set up a process to prioritize that assistance, set compensation rates for both the missing as well as the depredation, so injured or killed. And I understand you guys are going to talk about that a little bit later here this evening as well. What qualifications, meeting the qualifications for how to get that money out to folks. At least 30% of the grant funds have to be spent on depredation, and then the county has to contribute an equal amount to 10% of the allowed expenses. So if you're asked for $2,000 to operate the program, then you have to commit 10% of county funds in addition to that $2,000.
I have a question on that real quick, sorry. The 10% allowance can be, can include like staff time or other quote unquote donated expenses, not just a flat out dollar amount contributed, is that correct?
Correct, and I mean, you would put it as a monetary amount. So, staff time is, 5 hours at $100 an hour or whatever the case may be. So you would put the monetary amount in there when you make the application based on that staff time. So these are the counties that received grants in 23. These are the ones that applied. So everybody that applied received money. What we ended up doing was, I think we paid, I should have grabbed my notes from the office. I apologize. We ended up paying a certain percentage. I think it was like 60%. Some of the counties asked for, on the prevention side, they asked for over $100,000 because the legislature in the short session in 22 put some additional monies into this grant fund as a one-time boost to it. And so folks were asking for that money. We dropped everybody down to 100,000 or whatever they requested. And then I think we paid 30% of what everybody requested on preventative funds, and we paid 60% on the depredation. And we didn't pay any missing this year. And then we paid the full administrative requests. So it kind of can vary from year to year depending on how many counties make requests, what those requests are, and how much money is in the grant fund. So every year it is about 200,000 in state general, every biennium. So every 2 years we receive about 200,000 from the state general fund. They did actually make it a $1.2 million fund for the 23-25 biennium. So that was quite a boost. We don't know what will happen after 25. And then we do apply for federal funds through think it's like Department of Interior or something. But those tend to be really small grants. I think the last two I've done, we've gotten around 70 to 100,000 that goes in with that 200,000. And there's some limitations on the federal funds. You know, you can't use it to buy a drone unless you buy one of 2 approved drones. My understanding is the federal government is concerned because a lot of drone footage is backed up on Chinese servers. And so they're concerned about espionage and having access to that. So, you know, if you have that as part of your application, we may have a conversation about making sure that you're not using federal funds for some of those things. It's not super limited, but sometimes they have a few more hoops that we have to jump through. And then just to give you an idea, hopefully this shows up on your screen, I've broken it up by the last 5 years. And then I just put death, missing, and prevention. I left off the administrative costs. And so the blue or left-hand columns are what was requested. And then the yellow or right-hand columns for each of those years is what was awarded statewide.
Clarification on that. On the 2023, I thought I just took notes saying that you paid out 30% for preventative and 60% for loss or depredation, but that the graph doesn't show that.
Yep, I think I misspoke. So I think we must have paid out 100% on death. So my apologies. And we didn't pay anything on missing.
No, I'm sorry, the prevention looks like it's much more than the death or the missing.
It is, that's correct. So the death, it just depends on how many, so the producers will have to apply to your county. So if I lost a steer and ODF&W confirmed that that steer was killed by wolves, then I would fill out an application to the county committee for payment. And then when you apply in February for your county's grant, you would include that and say, okay, we had 5 steers. We said steers are worth $2,500. And so we're asking for this much money for death, but we want 100,000 for prevention to do fladry, range riding, and hold a conference. So they can be very different numbers.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be 30% for prevention. It could be way more than 30% of the grant cost. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right, it was just, yeah. It's just that this year we had a lot more requests for prevention than we were able to fund. So we dropped everybody's prevention, what we awarded we either brought them down to 100,000 because some counties asked, I think one county asked for 150, another one might have asked for close to 200. And then another county asked for like 2,000. So that didn't make sense to pay the 200,000. So we dropped everybody down to 100,000 or whatever they asked for. And then they ended up with a certain percentage. And that's probably what I should have said, is a certain percentage of that.
Got it.
So if you apply for like 100,000, you only get 60. Is that kind of what the percentage is?
That could be, and it varies again from year to year. We try to make it consistent among the counties. Sometimes we've tried it a couple of different ways because there's nothing in statute that says how exactly we have to divide that money up. And so if a county shows that they have more need in a given year, we might fund them at a higher rate than the other counties. Part of that depends on areas of known wolf activity as established by ODF&W. And so they'll say, this county has 3 packs of wolves in it, and we're seeing a lot of depredation. That county might need more assistance on prevention than a county that has 0 depredations in a given year. And so we're trying to take all of that into account when we're awarding these funds.
So you said that there was 1.2 million additional for this 23 to 25 biennium. I mean, from the looks of your graph, I mean, did most of that 1.2 million extra already go out?
No, that's coming in. That's for
Okay.
the 20, so that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So we have
there was more than the standard 200,000 for fiscal year 23 as well.
right. So the short session in 22 allocated an additional, I think, 400,000 out of state general funds to this program. So we received that additional funds at the end of last year that we were able to use when we did the grants for this year, which happens in the spring. And then moving into next year, we will have 1.2 million out of the state general fund as a pool to pull from for the next 2 years.
Great.
If that pool does not get used, is it bankable? Do you guys keep it in a fund for the
Yes. Yes. This is in its own fund, so it's not like we would pull it to use for other parts of the agency. It's specifically dedicated to this. And
you're not trying to use it all in that time period. You don't, like, the goal is not to disperse funds just because you got them at the time. Like, if there's need, sure, but if there's no need, say a county requests, you know, they all average about $100,000. You've got 600,000 for the year over the 2 years, which is 1.2 million. So you don't, no one, say that the counties don't ask for that full allotment. Does that continue on indefinitely, or do you guys try and use all the fund when you've got them, funds while you've got them?
Yeah, so we would try to make sure that we kind of balance it between the 2 years and the biennium. But you're correct. If the first year they only ask for 400,000, that other half would just be available in the second year to pull from.
At the third year, though, what happens then?
Yeah, if it doesn't all get used within the biennium, does the state claw it back?
I don't think so, but I haven't run into that yet because we've used it all up.
Yeah, use it all. Yeah,
I mean, pretty often with state appropriations, you see it basically turning into a pumpkin at the end of the biennium, and then if you didn't use it all, you have to give it back. But maybe this program is special.
Yeah, and I'm happy to look into that for you if you don't mind sending me an email, Jen, on that. Because like I said, the years that I've worked on it and the biennium that I finished, it was all gone. So the 400,000 and the bump from 200,000 to 1.2 have just been in the last couple of years. So it was a significant boost to the program.
Well, we'll do our part to make sure that there are enough requests to use up all the money.
Perfect. So we'll end there. Like and I'll send Jen a copy of this tomorrow. But the basic gist of the program, the way it manifests itself in my day-to-day life, is I will send the counties, in this case Jen being your county contact, an email usually in February saying, okay, the grant period is open. You have until March, whatever, to get the application to us. And so any producers who have experienced depredation or injury that is confirmed by ODF&W would submit those to the county. And I don't know when you're going to want to set that date so that you have all of that information. But basically it's for the previous year. So from February of 23 until the end of January of 24, or you could cut it off at December, I think. And so we have an application or a form that they fill out on our website and would submit to you. If you don't have it, I'm going to come back and ask for a copy of the ODF&W confirmation, just so we make sure we have everything lined up. So you would submit that for each of the producers. who want compensation for dead or injured livestock or working dogs, if you have any. And then same for missing. And then your preventative is going to be, like I said, looking forward. So in the next year, we want 100,000 to hold a conference, to provide this many hours of range riding, to provide radios, or whatever your committee decides is the best use of that money. And then whatever you decide for your administrative costs. And so you would gather all of that paperwork, email it over to us by the deadline. And I've worked with counties who were like, I couldn't get my committee to meet before, and we have to meet to sign off on it, or, you know, the county rep was out and couldn't sign the paperwork. So just work with me on that. Once we get all of the counties that are going to submit that, we go through that. Like I said, I'm going to double check and make sure that we've got ODF&W confirmation, all of the pieces are there, and then we look at what money is available in the grant that year and make those determinations. I then send back a contract that has those funds in there. You would sign off on it, send me back a copy. Our director or deputy director signs off on it. And then I send the appropriate paperwork downstairs and the agency cuts you a check. At the end of the year, you submit a report telling me what you did for your preventative, et cetera. Those are usually due December, of the calendar year. And then we start that cycle all over again.
On the prevention part of it, when you file for money, is it only from producers that are having problems currently, or can it be, you know, for unforeseen? Okay, but then if money's not used by the county by the end of that year, do we give that back, or is that okay?
You do, yep. And that's part of that contractual agreement, is that if you end up not using it, cool, you had it, we put it back in the pool for everybody to pull from in the next grant cycle.
Is there an avenue for preventative measures that have already happened? We already know of at least one rancher who has had a depredation and has implemented aggressive preventative measures, but we didn't have our committee formed before then. So
no.
Forward.
Yeah, we would only be able to fund that depredation. We would not be able to fund backwards his preventative measures.
But any new preventative measures for next year?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So compensation is looking backwards for a year and prevention is looking forward.
Exactly. And I know, like, for example, this year, I think Klamath Lake, maybe Jackson County, pooled their preventative funds and held like a 2-day conference. And they brought in somebody from, I think, Montana that has a lot of, has had some success with preventative measures to come talk about that. They had ODF&W and USDA APHIS, the animal and plant health folks from USDA that work on this as well, because down in Southern Oregon, there's some overlap between federal and state regulations for wolves. And so they were able to pool that money together and host that conference. So it really depends on, again, what the committee itself decides is the best use of those funds.
Sunny, when you showed us that graph that had, you know, the award levels for the last couple of years, so there had been quite a lot of, you know, very large amount of prevention requests in 2023, and you funded a certain amount of those. If it was possible to kind of like tease that apart and say, some of these are one-time projects. You know, you fund this prevention measure once, and you know that entity, that rancher is taken care of with, you know, prevention measures for the next few years, versus like a range rider, you gotta get a certain amount of money for the range rider for that year, and then next year you're gonna need just as much money for a range rider the next year. Like, is there, within those bars on that chart, I mean, is there some of it that is, you know, we just funded that one time and those folks are set for a while? Or was it all, you know, we need to buy this year and we're going to need to buy the same amount next year?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I can't tease it apart on paper, but I'll tell you, my gut is a lot of it is we're funding it every year. Range riding, digging carcass holes, right? So helping producers bury the animals. I mean, that's a big cultural shift as well in many of these areas, because, you know, we're used to saying, well, nature will take care of it. I don't need to worry about it. But if you have a dead cow laying in a field, that's going to be an attractant for wolves. So some counties choose to pay to help those producers bury those carcasses. That's an ongoing annual expense, right? That's not a one time. There are some like radios, and you know, if they bought a drone, or I think some of the, I can't remember if it's the flaggery, because they go out and set it up and they have it on the property for a while, but then they move it because you can't leave it there because the wolves will become accustomed to it. And so then it loses its effectiveness. So something like that you can move around is going to be potentially a one-time cost, or every few years kind of cost. So it really just depends on how you choose to spend that money.
But so to predict for next year, that blue bar, like all those prevention requests, is probably going to be at least that big next year.
Yes, and the reason it was so big this year is because this has been such a hot topic and was such a big topic during the short session. Like, there was a special session in December of 22. I think there was some federal funds left over from COVID and some of those things that the state needed to spend. And so the industry was able to get that extra influx into the system. And so counties were like, we're going to ask for everything we think we possibly can get. I don't know what will happen next year. I assume that it will be higher again. Counties such as yourself, being a brand new committee, you may want to, you know, ask for more because you're getting started and you want to do that education and outreach, et cetera. So, and we have the greater funds compared to previous years.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sunny? Sunny, you're welcome to stay on, but you're free to drop too. I know you've got a lot going on in your household tonight, so thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll just listen in for a little bit, and if you think of another question for me, then I'll be available. Otherwise, I'll probably pop off at around 7.
Yeah, I mean, I could see asking for, you know, your insights or experience perspective on this next, you know, on some of the discussions for this next topic. So thanks for hanging out with us for a little longer. Next item on the agenda is establishing priority funding procedure and compensation rates. So we have to develop a process to prioritize assistance for producers who are facing depredation, and we need to establish compensation rates for deaths or injuries, livestock, working dogs, and does that include missing? I mean, are we?
So tonight is the first time I've heard missing. So maybe Sunny can clarify that. And Also, the last 3 pages in your packet that I just added on, you guys have not seen this yet. Sunny provided this to me yesterday, but they're from 3 other counties, Klamath, Umatilla, and Wallowa County, on kind of their process for establishing depredation rates. But Sunny, maybe you can clarify, do we need to have specific rates for injured, a specific rate for death, a specific rate for missing, and then is it the type, do we have to have it for those 3 categories? We need to have a specific rate for each type of livestock, or can we just do a per pound thing, or is it, what's our flexibility on doing that, I guess?
I think it's all pretty flexible. A lot of times I see steer versus calf versus like nursing mother kind of thing. And we do see, I think you break it out by animal type. So sheep are going to have one reimbursement rate versus cattle versus llamas versus working dogs. So yeah, they are separate based on the animal type.
I see that Klamath County did it. It looks like they just did a flat rate per pound.
Yeah. So I think it's really flexible on what you want to do.
Did you say there was 3 differences in rates?
There are. So the very first one doesn't have a header, but it's and it's Klamath County.
It's not just our notes.
No, it just, she just pulled the 1 pager out of their last meeting whenever they pulled it. So it didn't have a header. So the second to last page, the front side is Klamath County, the back side is Wallowa, and then the last page is Umatilla.
So I'm not quite sure how to start this discussion. I mean, looking at those 3 counties rates is probably helpful. Do people want to just sit and digest that for a couple minutes, or?
I see the pound meal being kind of hard. I mean, obviously they put digest it. I was ready to jump in. Sorry.
No, I mean, if you're ready to.
They're giving you obviously an average poundage, but at that point, why would you go to the pound thing? You would just have a flat rate for a pair or whatnot, because they're giving an estimated weight on what those are anyhow. So at that point, why wouldn't you just have a flat number, kind of like Umatilla has?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like weighing it, you're not going to get actual pounds.
Well, that's they have it already. You're not
yeah.
How you gonna?
Like, I don't know, and all the blood's gone.
Yeah, each pound from the bull. Right.
Yeah.
I'd be kind of hard to do it before and after eating.
A basic rate per animal is rather than a
Yeah.
pound estimation.
Yeah, I think that would make more sense.
And we are, cattle prices quite high right now, so usually.
I think it needs to be a variable rate, obviously for whatever the market is. Plus, I mean, some stuff's organic, some people are selling natural beef, and if you're in a program where you're getting more than market rate, like how in depth do you go?
I don't think we can. I think that makes everyone crazy.
Right. I think you take an average of what everything is plus 15%, and that would kind of give you a.
You want to add some on top, some value just for the hassle of it.
Well, you're going to ask for this much, and they're going to knock that much off of it. It sounded like, well, the funding. I didn't know maybe if that was, because you request so much for an animal.
We prioritize the depredation. I'd imagine we pay out the depredation out of the funds first and foremost. That's what I thought.
Right.
That's a good
In that chart, it looked like the requests versus the actual compensation was pretty close. It wasn't It wasn't 100% on the deaths, but it was pretty close.
Pretty close.
Maybe Sunny, can you clarify? Did you, for the most part, pay out all depredation requests? And it was just kind of the measures were you based on money allowed?
Correct. Yeah. We really prioritize that. And then I would add the other thing is I think some counties talk to the livestock yards and find out. I think one of you was kind of mentioning that the market rates, and use that to base their reimbursement on as well.
It's also really challenging because it's really variable. And so like things that got, so like we've had cattle got killed all year. And so it's like, okay, well, when was it killed? And like, what was the market value at that point? And then we apply for funds, you know, in February of next year, like what are cattle prices doing then? And like in our business, we sell them all for the same amount of money all the time. So like being part of like a variable situation doesn't seem like very fair, like wherever it lands, you know, on like, oh, they're high, oh, they're low, oh, too bad.
Wish the Wills killed them now instead of 6 months ago, kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
You know, so like I think coming up with just like something real fair and consistent that isn't actually linked to something that's really pretty wild. I don't know if anybody's spent much time with the auction lately, but it can be like really wild, you know? So I don't know, it just seems like coming up with something really fair that is consistent is probably a good place to start.
Yeah. Do we have to justify, Sunny, our pricing to anyone higher up?
I mean, if you tried to tell me that a steer was worth $50,000, I'd probably come back
Sure.
and ask you what the heck you were thinking.
Yeah.
But you know, if it's kind of within the realm of possibility, no.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because the variability in cattle price, and let's say there's a rancher that comes in and has a lost steer or something like that, doesn't know anything about the system, the process, or anything like that, and just so happens that the price was low, or the price that he's receiving is far less than the current market rates. We've got to be able to argue why that money is as much as it is. If we said, all right, every year we set a certain rate, and then we add what we thought was fair for the last kind of 12 months or whatever, and then we added 10%. That's kind of like that little extra bonus. So even if it is lower than what the current market rate is, we could say, well, it was higher then. I think we just got to be careful about arguing value and be able to kind of stand by it a little bit, and make it so that no one feels like they're getting ripped off or also getting overpaid.
Right. The one, you know, been a producer forever, and you know, you're always selling an animal at the same price. I don't know what you guys have going, but we're always at the auctions at the mercy of what the market's doing. So I think, you know, to expect the same rate all the time is unfair to the taxpayers that are going to end up paying for this, because I don't get $2 a pound every single year. Sometimes I get $1.05. And, you know, that's my risk as a producer. And just because they lost it doesn't mean they should be doing maybe more. And that's where I thought maybe the 10 to 15% would be kind of that, you know, the hassle.
Yeah.
So maybe the high yielding, you know, the market rate of the closest market to where the animal.
Well, we only really,
accuracy.
yeah, we only really have one large sale yard in the county.
I mean,
anyways.
you can talk, you know, Tom Morton, stuff like that. But, you know, if you went with the high end of whatever that animal was, and then, you know, I guess the biggest thing would be having the average weight of whatever that was. Like, you know, a cow, you're going to say it's average 1,500 pounds, or.
Wouldn't you just say a calf is anything under 800 pounds, yearling is anything, I don't know, just do calf, yearling, right, full grown and bull. I can't see a bull really getting taken down by bulls, but
yeah, yearling, like a leaner calf.
just kind of break it out.
I do everything. You know, if it was on the high end, like, okay, so you wean a calf that's 500 pounds. Sure. So say that a pair would be a calf with a cow with a 500 pound calf, and then a yearling would be what, 8 to 12. I mean, it's 12. I don't know.
Sarah, do you, from your experiences, is there much chance of a cow-calf pair going down, or is it usually just calf gets picked off?
We definitely had cows, heifers and cows.
Yeah.
And some calves.
But never like, is it worth putting in a cow-calf pair? Right, just do the separate. Yeah.
You can see here for Umatilla County, this is a conversation Sunny and I had a little bit earlier, but if you look at item G, they have a clause in there that the livestock owner or producer can actually argue if their market value is more than what their set rate is. And my understanding, Sunny, is that we don't need to specifically turn in the rates to you, or we do, or we have some flexibility if the group changes it. What's the accountability from the rate setting with the committee to what they're requesting from the state? You're on mute.
It popped up, sorry. I think we would just ask if we had questions about those rates, and you would just have to provide documentation of your minutes, or why you changed it, or what the case may be.
So we do in the grant process submit the rates of what we're basing the grant request on. Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with setting a price for a calf or a heifer or whatever rather than per pound, because I checked for September 11th at the Central Oregon Livestock Auction, and it was, some of it was up to $2.40 a pound versus what they're paying here. So you can see that fluctuation. It would just be up and down if we're doing it per pound. So just shows you just a few weeks ago.
And this is like based on, it's like the committee decided, on fair market value that this year's values are, so it's like, it just seems like we should come up with something that's gonna ride until the February application, and then we because you apply every year in February, it seems like.
Correct.
So you should come up with something. And
so like Wallowa or Umatilla County, I think I'd sort of stick with that. It would cause less headaches trying to figure out market price, I think.
Theirs is 1 year old, so it's 2022. So just take that into consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, it is backward looking, right? So you're compensating someone for a depredation that happened in the past, and we do know in the past what prices were. I mean, so would it make any sense in January to kind of just do average pricing over that 1 year period, or something like that? Or I guess what I'm saying is we have data about what prices were during the year that the depredation occurred. But how much do we want to use that or in what ways do we want to use that to come up with a number when we submit the application?
I think that's something you can stand on, to justify an average for the past year. That's, I mean, we have to be specific about where we're averaging, which livestock market. And then I do like the idea of putting on a little extra on top of the average, 10%, whatever, just to make it worth the hassle, I suppose.
From everything we've heard, when wolves are around, the animals aren't putting on as much weight. They're stressed. Sure. So I mean, the 10% actually is maybe
loss, right?
Yeah, so there's sort of projected loss of weight.
Yep.
So if we did that method, could I suggest that we adopt some rates here? Then, as a staff member, per your guys' direction, in January, I could go back, look at the market that you guys are choosing for the categories that we already have and adjust those, so that the next committee meeting, we can just kind of adopt those rates based off of how you want to proceed on adopting those rates today. And then we can, if that's the method you guys want to work.
Or if there's, if there's an agreed upon way of using the data from the last year, we could just come up with a formula today and then run the formula.
So we just have to agree on weights, basically, right?
Or classifications of kills, calf, cow, that kind of thing. You want to put a weight bracket around.
Well, then we can look at the market report, or
Sure.
And then we have a weight that we're going off of, and then we can just tack that on, and then there's obviously
just heads up, Jen, it's a pain in the ass to do that.
If you tell me very specifically what a market report is for who, I can absolutely do that.
You have to type in a lot of data, because they don't give it to you. You gotta, if you're doing it every sale.
I mean, I can do it in Excel pretty easily,
Yeah,
but if you give me the direction on what, because I did try to get some livestock and I called like the 4-H club and they thought they had some floor rates they could give me, but they didn't. And they said their rates don't work because they jack them up because they're fundraisers. And so like, so I did try to do some research, but I just don't have any background knowledge on this. So if you guys want to, if you can provide me more specific direction on looking that up, I'm more than happy to do the actual work of finding that in January. And then I think today, if we just set kind of, again, the categories, what you mean by those categories, we can plug in one of these rates and then I can just go and adjust that. And I'll send that around before we meet as a group so you guys can have time. I just want to make sure, I think if we spend a lot of time on it next time, I think what we're looking for is our next meeting is going to be the final meeting before we apply for the grant. So we're spending a lot of time on kind of like preventative measures and the other things. So want to make sure there's enough built out time in that block for everything. If that,
why don't we just come up with like some numbers? I mean, we know what we sell cows for. You know what I mean? Like, why does it really matter? It's like they were like, oh shit, we don't want to do more money, and we'll put 1.2 million in it. It's like, okay, well, I want 3,800 for my cow. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? A little bit. It's like, why don't we just come up with some like nice numbers that are like pleasant, and everybody's like, great, that's super fair.
I think for it to be fair, it's got to be justifiable, and you've got to have some basis in justifying that number, and that we can't just come up with a number without justifying it with some kind of grounding.
So what is our grounding?
That's what I'm trying to get. Yeah.
Well, where would we look?
I just go.
Well, we should
livestock.
be looking so we can like come up with it. Like, what is it? What do you think?
I think Central Oregon Livestock.
Yeah,
auction.
that's what I wrote some of the numbers down, because that's what I looked at on September 11th.
Because that's other than Tommy Norton and private sales. I don't think there's any other kind of institution that sells or markets.
Right.
The buys in bulk.
do they change their, how often do they?
Every sale.
As long as there's a sale and there's on a holiday.
So I wonder if there's a way where from what I'm hearing, that possibly look at their average auction rates for 2023 overall would give you a good fair market value for, and do they do?
I don't think they do an average. You'd have to actually
type it all in.
But you can do.
Oh, that's what you meant by.
You can pick like, okay, the first day of spring and the first day of fall or something like that, and we could take averages from those days. Like, I don't know.
They may. What's the? Yeah, they may have that information. They just don't publish it. You can't just find it online. I've tried. So you might be able to just email Central Oregon Livestock, and they might be able to give you a year's average for our broken out thing. Does that make any sense to you, Sarah, in terms of?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm like looking a little maybe beyond the Central Oregon Livestock, you know, because that's just like, it's a pain to track down, whereas like there should be maybe like a national number or something like that that is published. It's like the stock market. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's like always available to us.
Right, but we're talking about in our county.
Yeah.
What is the scale worth in our county?
Right? Often those national ones are lower. The Texas numbers are always like, you don't get as much money in Texas for a steer to do it. Oregon. Prize ball, they spend big money.
We want to account for, I mean, I think that's definitely an interesting data point, but then we also want to account for, you know, if there's ranchers who use kind of like higher stewardship or special, you know,
organic natural feed
practices.
I think that
they're going to look at it and be like,
well, that I think where they have it in G in the Tilla one, where it says where if you have, you know, justification for your claim saying that my animal's actually worth more, I think that's a really good idea, because then they can argue it. And you leave that up to them, because if we try to prove it,
no, I think that makes a lot
I think like taking these, and I like how simple theirs is. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I think if we just had like a set number for, you know, and then they can argue whether it's less or more.
We have a defensible number and an opportunity to flex that, right? You know, based on that production that comes in.
So you reckon steal these headers, maybe put some weight brackets around it, and then play our own number.
Right.
Yep. That's 10%.
100%. No, yeah. Just seems,
Yeah.
this is.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like Umatilla has done, because when I look at what I wrote down for the Central Oregon Livestock auction, they have heifers and they have everything from, they break it down, 400 to 500 pounds, got 230 to 245 per 100 weight. And they break it down every 100 pounds, and then there's a different, so I just having heifer and calves, I think would be better than having all these differences of 100 pounds each in each category. That seems too confusing. And then make up for it with the percentage. I think that seems fair to me. But I'm not a rancher, so was.
What do you think, Sarah?
I guess, like, I wonder where they got their market values, like in Umatilla, you know? Can we just like base it on Umatillas? Based on the Umatilla people.
That seems a little low Umatilla right now.
Yeah, they're not.
I mean, it was 2022, so
Yeah.
we could add
That's-
7% for inflation, add another 10% for whatever, and then use that as the basis. Based off of what I'm hearing, I'm not trying to determine.
No, yeah,
It would be nice to see the Central Oregon Livestock's numbers just to kind of.
Well, we've got like for right now, you know, like doing the math, you've got like 600 to 700 pounds. So like, you know, that's something that you'd be looking at, maybe like a heifer. I mean, that's, well, I don't know, I guess. Or like, where do we have some idea of where we want to like classify our calves versus like heifers versus cows?
0 to 600 would be a calf, right?
Okay, so that's good.
To
Calves 0 to 600 pounds.
12 yearling, or you want it to wean, you want to break it into 2 and do a wean, or I suppose that is.
Yeah, so then like,
I don't know. Nothing.
so then yearlings, are you talking like 6 to 9?
Probably.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and then put something in there, obviously, that they can argue it. So this is just what we're kind of getting at. So yeah, I would say 6 to 9.
Okay, 6 to 9. So then you've got like 2-year-olds, essentially. So that's like butcher weight
Right.
stuff. So
Did you butcher under
like
900 pounds?
Sometimes
No.
people, it just depends on the breed.
so I
too.
would say it'd be like 900 to like 1200. Would
What do
be
you
like
call
a
that?
decent butcher weight.
Butcher,
What's that category?
Butcher steers or
butchers,
butcher.
cows,
Well,
steers.
no, because
Yeah, it
that's a
can't
whole
just be
different.
steers because
That's a
you
whole
butcher
different
has
animal
steers.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
We don't
Butcher
like
cattle?
Not this
we
one.
didn't like the rates in the Wallowa.
Or just the
example,
amount of
but
detail.
those aren't categories that we
Up to
might wanna
600 pounds.
use.
Yeah.
You know, calves, wean calf.
I'd throw steer and heifer calf wean together. Just put them.
Okay, just for my note taking, I have calves 0 to 600, yearlings 6 to 900, butcher.
it's like 9 to 1200.
Yeah, we just say butcher total with that. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
I think like a
Butcher weight.
butcher animal,
Yeah.
a butcher bovine. I mean, right? Yeah.
Maybe you could do a butcher cow, and it goes all the way up to 1500.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Well, but then we're gonna have cows.
Yeah,
Like cows will be its own
Okay,
thing. So that's
fair,
like, and
fair.
sure,
So
you
we're
can
just
butcher
doing-
them, but so then we've got like 12 to 1500 is like cows, and then you've got 1500 plus for bulls. How's that sound?
What's
I
the
would
butcher
put a
animal,
limit.
1200? Sorry.
So you had 9 to
900.
12.
I would put a limit on cows. That's big gills. In terms of size, I would say.
Right, but like, see, we're not gonna go on the pounds ultimately.
Yeah.
So we just need to come up with like a number. It's like, oh, like, let's go with the high end. We're calling cows, like, say 1500.
Yep.
So now we're gonna go and we're gonna look at the livestock option today, and we don't see, let's see here, butcher cows. So, and if we go with like something medium fleshy, we're going like 129, so 130
Yeah,
per hundredweight. 130 times 1,500. Then we've got like 1,200 pound, you know, butcher animals. You know, are going like 230.
Are you going with a high number?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're not doing it by weight, but the livestock auction does it by weight, just
Yeah,
how do you propose that we look at the average?
Yeah, so there's a high and a low, they give you a high and a low. I'd almost average the high and a low.
But if we're not reimbursing, if we're not putting in the grant for a reimbursable weight, we're putting in a grant for
Like a
the
flat
category,
rate.
a flat rate. How do, if you want me to go back and look at the livestock auction to get the historic data for 2023 and it's done by weight, how do you?
The max weight in that category.
Yeah, the max.
So whatever the max weight is,
So
use
it's cut
that.
600 pounds.
And it was 250, then 600 times 250, and that follows, that's what the, okay, okay. So I have calves, yearlings, butcher animals, 9 to 1,200, cows, 12 to 1,500. That's where I lost.
And I think
Yeah,
1,500 is
well,
probably.
hold on, so I'm
that
looking at
price
things.
of
So we're looking
1,500.
at butcher animals,
Good
and
for
you
a
know,
whole
they're going for like 230 per hundredweight. So times like 1,200. Okay, then you've got your like yearlings are down here and we'll be at like the 700 average, right? So that's 250 per hundredweight. 250 times 900. Then you got down here the calves. They don't have calves over here in the heifers. I guess they do have some calves. So it's 240 per pound or hundredweight. 240 times, we'll call it 600. So then you get over here. So we got calves. So we're gonna say it's a 600 pound animal times $240. Whoa. So 600, so it's 6 times 240. It's $1,440 for a calf.
Which
I can go
is-
get a
okay.
flip chart, we can actually put this up on, so we can all look at it together, or.
Yeah, I'll write it up there if you go get the flip chart. I'm just working on the
Do you know
map.
where they are? I don't actually know where they are. Maybe in the supply room? Do you want me to go? Okay.
And that's probably makes sense because like from Iowa County.
So I got a little lost in my categories. I got the calves,
Yeah.
yearlings, the butcher animals, the
Came up with
cows.
what, 1,400?
Yeah.
Well,
Should I just do 1,200 plus?
If it falls in anything, but yeah, 1,200 plus is cow, but use as the weight for the calculation for 1,500 pounds.
Yeah.
Because that's probably your average cow weight. When you do the math, if you know what I mean, once you've got your average 100 weight. And are you familiar with the 100 weight thing, Jen? What's going on about?
I feel like
basically
I'm
just
speaking foreign language right now.
So when it's really saying 100 weight, it basically just means per 100 pounds they're paying $240. You think of it differently.
Okay, 240.
$2.40 per pound.
Yeah, okay,
Just move the decimal.
got it. I can manage that math.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want, so we're just gonna, based off of what we're seeing now, we can do some quick calculation,
Yeah.
insert that. I'll go back in January. I was wondering too, somebody I reached out to when I was trying to form the committee was, I forget his first name, Mr. Nash, this cattleman, this president of the Oregon Cattlemen or Stockman
yeah.
Association. I could also reach out to him, maybe he has. I don't know what anyone's viewpoint is on that organization, if they would have that information.
I think it's better to go by the livestock option because it's in Central Oregon.
Okay.
And they publish all their stuff. And we should just come up with how you're gonna figure it out,
For January.
which is like, I guess, looking at the whole year. Is that what we're talking about? Is like, so you're gonna have to go back and look at them.
Since we redid the supply room,
I don't know where it is, I've looked before, so.
you know, we're in like the post-COVID Zoom world, so Sunny left,
She left, but we have to record it because it's a public meeting.
but like
do you want
if
me
you
to take
share
that off?
screen,
Oh.
if you did share screen and we typed it up, then we can all look at it together.
Yeah, it might be.
Cause, you know, anyone who's watching this recording later probably doesn't really need to see us.
So,
So good.
actually, what I have to do is join the Zoom on mine and then I'll go mute and then share my screen.
If that's not too hard.
Nope.
That's how we do things in the Zoom world, right? Like, instead of flip charts, we just type stuff on the screen.
It'll just take me 1 second to log in and join the Zoom.
I think we're gonna have to lean on you for that.
Ooh, no worries.
Go, Jojo, go.
I mean, I just
I
did the
saw, I
math.
saw, I noticed.
I mean, it sounds
they
like you got it
didn't
all. You got the categories and the numbers already.
Right,
Oh, wow.
So you
I
can
didn't
just put
think
that
which
about
are
part.
not, they're not really great, I gotta say. Like, I'm displeased with the numbers.
Real.
I don't know how to.
What about
I
pigs?
mean, and you know, you're raising special.
We may lean on
like,
these guys.
he's raising special breeds. I don't know if they're the same size as other cows. So like, if you're having this, you know, this auction G,
I'm guessing they have.
you know, for you know, individual producers to say like, you know, to kind of lay out the argument, look, you know, with the breeds I'm raising and the way that I'm raising them, you know,
I guess
a better
because
number
it's
would
like
be,
that goes out of it.
1,800 instead
Yeah, that
of,
would,
you
yeah.
know, that there's totally the opportunity to do that.
Mhm.
We use the same methodology.
You know, like my ex-husband has purebred cattle,
All that kind of stuff.
so, you know, if he had depredation down in Klamath County,
Like is it
he would probably say
how
it
we
might
do
be
our
worth a
valuations?
lot more. I don't
Standardize
know.
that. We just have to pick a market
So,
to get those values
um,
from for the pigs and lambs.
Need to talk to people.
That's where any producer that feels their livestock are worth
Lebanon,
more,
most of them.
that's the out
Goats and sheep.
for them to argue their case, I guess.
And like procedurally, right, we're kind of,
That's it.
we're throwing up some generic numbers now.
Okay.
More cows from.
Yeah.
But
And it looks like what you, sort of in line with what Wallow and Umatilla came up with.
I can just pull up a separate Word document so I can expand it.
that's your,
They,
that's
they
what,
held their own auction.
Oh dear, I hope I could see this.
That'd be kind of.
I wish I
Yeah.
could, yeah.
could you
Yeah.
magnify?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yes.
open a separate Word
I'm gonna
document.
have to go right to the screen.
And then they're setting their auction prices. Might be a bit internal.
I need up the budget quick.
Yeah.
Or just do that chunky and like, increase the font size.
Oh, is this your thing that you're doing?
Yep.
Okay,
Like a flip chart, but
okay.
Yay,
Digital.
can read that book
Okay,
there,
that's our starting, what I've typed in so far.
yeah. Sure.
are those our categories or are
Yeah,
there more categories?
Johnny and I were just talking about other small animals like alpacas, llamas, mules, pigs. I don't think you need to type all them in. I think we can just say any other small animal. We'll use the market rate system that we're going to use for the cows and lambs. We just kind of will use as needed. We just need to pick a market for those animals. A sale yard to get pricing for.
Which one? Sorry, I'm gonna save it real quick so I don't
Yep.
lose it. Okay, so I have, what I really left off with was D. And then we have bulls, heifers. Do they need any other special category than this?
Heifers were kind of thrown into
Yeah.
butcher animals.
We're just
So I
gonna
can
get rid
delete
of
that?
that first.
Yeah. Bulls, what do you reckon, 220? We're kind of shooting an Angus weight on 225, 2,225 pounds, but
Yeah.
So as the base breed,
on Central Oregon livestock, what's the rate, bull weight?
There's no weights, there's just.
yeah, they
it's
don't
just
have
like-
any weights. They have high yield, medium yield and feeder.
So $1.35.
Sorry.
Yeah,
What's an average bull weigh? 2,000?
2,000 pounds.
Yeah, I think just use 2,000 pounds.
$1.35.
You'd have to do the average thing again. With like,
Yeah.
But for our base, for what I'll start with now will be this, and then I can go back to January, whatever. Okay. Did you have these rates too for the cows, which is, you said 240?
yeah, I had cows at, 130.
Butcher weight, you got what, heiferettes, probably be the closest.
165.
I had them at 230. Like for butcher weight, 230, don't you think?
But these
Based
are
on
900
the-
to 1200, so they're above the.
Right.
And I'll just based off of the high end, 1200.
Yeah, I think 230 is high for that weight. When you're looking at Sarah Lee, you're looking at the heifers and steers, or you're looking at, because I know that they max out at 900 pounds, right?
Right.
It says yearlings at 230. Well, I guess at the 900 pounds, it's 230.
For yearlings.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the butcher animal one might be off.
Yeah, I mean, we don't-
1,200 pound animal.
We like don't have anything here for butcher animals, do we?
Well, that's
Like
a
on the-
totally different thing because if you're selling it by the package. Right, like you're not basing it on that. I mean, it's worth more to you.
Oh, it's with way more percent you.
Yeah, like I'm
You
quite displeased with the prices we're coming up
Yeah.
with.
A bit, that's the problem with the cattle market is that when
Right.
we selling
That's why I was
salad,
trying to come up with some other way of getting to
Yeah,
a more reasonable number. You know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
for butcher animals, what is a reasonable number?
I've been using heiferettes. That rate.
165.
Is it 165?
That was the high.
Yeah,
That was my size
165 for heiferettes is like, that's terrible. So when we butcher something, it's like 400 pounds in the package and we sell it for $8 a pound wholesale. You know, so 400 times $8 a pound is $3,200 for a, you know, and when I did the math here
But you're saving on
for
cost.
like butcher animals, it was like 27.60 based on like a 230 per pound.
But you have, because you've lost the animal depredation, you're not having your butcher costs. So therefore, yeah, you're losing that value, but you're also not including, you're not having to pay those extra costs. You get a butcher package wrapped with other stuff, so you kind of,
But you're trying to find an animal to replace that one.
yeah. I don't know.
Is there replacement weight then? I guess you can't buy all these.
But not everyone's a
categories.
direct to consumer like yourself and Sarah Lee. So we sell cut wrap meat directly, whereas
I guess if you're just replacing the animal, it should be
animal,
market rate.
Market
You can buy it on
yeah, you just go buy it for the same price, even though it's not going to be up to your standards or, you know, your particular market, like grass fed or, you know, like.
So that's
I
what
think
that's how I ended up with the $2.30. You know, it's like we're like, okay, well, this is a 1,200 pound animal, $2.30 because it's like 800 to 900 pounds. But I'm like, okay, well, we're classifying butcher weight as 900 to 1,200 pounds. So it's like, all right, well, is that close enough? You know, for her to be able to go and look for 12 months of markets and make an average. It's like, what is she looking at on this sheet?
Yeah.
That it's like really easy to come up with the same thing, you know? So,
What category should we check? Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully not 100. I'm hoping that they'll actually be able to provide that behind the scenes, even if they don't have a public.
I think I asked a couple of years back, like, nope,
provide what behind the scenes?
average.
The average rate
average.
versus
That's
we
why
have
I
to do the math for it.
I'm wondering if we just pick a date every quarter,
I mean, that made the first day of the month every quarter.
make it super simple.
Yeah.
And then there's,
Then you're looking at 4
4 price
market
points.
reports,
Yeah.
and you're just averaging those 4. That might be easier for your sake, because I'm pretty sure I asked them ages ago and they couldn't give it to me. They just said go through all the market reports.
And
Like
how
they
much
said-
do you think it's really going to vary versus?
I mean, it can vary quite a bit from fall to spring.
Yeah.
Right, but if you look at the 4
quarters-
seasons versus,
Oh,
yeah. And then do you also have this clause in here of like,
Being able to argue.
yeah, if they come back? And
So how are we gonna deal with that? People are gonna argue it.
They have to prove it,
Yeah, that's
Prove-
what this
Prove
guy-
what?
that their animal is worth what they're saying it's worth. Like, we have to agree on,
Right, so
we-
what does that look like? What does our little application look like? You know what I mean?
That's probably going to do case by case.
And so next time we're here, we'll be able to look at the application. I'll bring the application. I'll give it to you guys ahead of time. I looked at it briefly, but honestly, I looked at it in February when we were trying to form the Wolf Committee, so it's not quite fresh in my head. I also don't believe, I think the state is a willing partner here. You know, if it's within reason, and we can say, if a farmer comes in or a rancher comes in and says, I lost the cattle, I was selling a similar cattle around that time for this amount. This is, you know, and I have these special considerations, so my beef goes for higher amount. This is what my market rate value is. I think that is sufficient there. We're not getting audited here by an accountant on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Umatilla County, they said, you know, provide a justification, not like
Right.
not like
A dissertation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because I loved it. No, sorry.
Yeah. I only bought from my neighbor, he sold them very expensive.
Yeah.
no pets, no pets.
Yeah.
Working dogs only.
Boy.
But yeah, we didn't. Do we even have dogs on this list?
Nope,
Not
still have to
yet.
get there.
I think it's at the small animals market, right?
So as you're
That
like
one's
doing
so
this,
very
for you
polite.
to be able to have like the, you know, to be able to come up with something relatively easy, if you put calves just at 600 pounds, so instead of having this like range, it's like it's 600 pounds at whatever the
Well, if
calf rate is at 600 pounds. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So that we're not having like, and so then the next one is like yearlings are just 900 pounds, and you're gonna come to the sheet and you're gonna look at like 900-pound animals.
Right, we were just
I think
saying
we were
that-
setting the range originally so that you could actually, whatever your animal was that you lost, you could actually
Say you
be
lost
able to put it in
a
one
100-pound
category.
calf.
So we wanted
You were
to,
gonna get the $600 rate or 600-pound rate at that. She was just putting the numbers in there so she could get the flat rate.
so I think it looks like this then. So the category is 0 to 600 pounds, calculation is 600 pounds at X amount of dollars.
Okay.
It's just a setting.
Correct, is that what we're saying?
Category.
Yeah.
Okay.
That should be 600 and 900.
Right, yeah, she
It's
started.
really fun having you guys watch me.
Jen started to delete and then we were like, no, don't delete the range.
6,000, 6,000.
And
So this is 1,200 to 1,500. We're gonna calculate,
No,
I think it's 9
900
to
to
1,200.
shoot,
sorry, Jen.
nope, you guys are good. Yeah, I was not a note taker in my previous life.
I'm still trying to figure out what's your animal. 160. Yeah. I mean, I think the heiferettes is probably the classification on the. You got that in front of you, Sarah Lee?
Yeah,
It's
I
on the bottom.
like.
It's kind of higher than a butcher cow. It's close to the 900-pounder replacement heifer, or steer weight, but a little less because you've gone up a fair bit in size. So I think the heiferette price classification would fit with the butcher cow. That's a pretty good price for like a replacement heifer or something like that.
Is this cow's heifer?
Heiferettes are kind of,
And
Too bad
under
that
this
they-
categories?
Like,
Is
it
that what you're
doesn't
saying?
seem like they have posted
We
the
were talking
like.
about butcher animals. We're just trying to get a price for the butcher animals.
just to make it easy for you, which category to pull the numbers from for butcher animals.
So you think it's the heiferette? Is that what you're saying?
I'm kind of throwing.
Yeah,
it out
I
there.
just like I'm just saying that like I don't know about that. I don't know. It seems low to me, and like we don't have any like butcher weight steers that were sold at this auction. So we like don't have something. So just being like, well, let's just go with a heiferette. It's like I don't even have a heiferette, Like I don't know. I don't like that number, and I'm like, no. So we need to come up with something else. And I was looking to see, I don't know if you're on this website, but like where they have, of course, this week's market report, but like they don't, and we're asking her to go back and like get all these market or some, right?
Yeah.
But like they're not online, I don't
You
think.
can get them. Yeah.
Where though?
Sorry.
Where do you get them?
I've got them off this website before, I'm pretty sure.
Well, let's dig down and find where on the website then. Because
I can
maybe we
call
can-
them too. I'll call
We'll
them,
send-
explain what we're doing. I think what we're doing is beneficial for them as well to some extent. We're not trying to work against them with what we're asking for these rates.
no, but they may not, I mean, they may be trying to keep this information not so public for reasons of, I mean, that benefit their business, so they still, I don't know.
The 4-H of Central Oregon did have floor rates, which she was explaining to me meant like actual market value rates. So I can also go back to them and see what they pull. She's like, don't use our rates what we sell, because it's, maybe you guys do want to use them, but like.
Why did she say that?
Because they sell them for fundraisers, so businesses
Oh, you're
come
talking
in
about
to
the
support.
4-H.
Yeah,
no,
4-H.
somebody comes in and buys like a rabbit for $500.
Yeah.
I guess a good thing.
Tax write-off for business, that's what that is.
Since like livestock auction, just see if we can pick the, the first.
Yeah.
4 days, hey, can we get those 4?
Yeah.
I'll start there, and the other thing I can do is I can reach out to Umatilla and Walla Walla and see where if they have another recommendation for where they're getting their resources. Okay.
There's the Vale in Ontario on the edge of state. I know they've got.
What is it?
Vale, VALE.
Livestock?
Livestock auction out here. Yeah, livestock auction out there, and they've definitely got every single market report from every sale they've ever done online. Remember that one?
And I'll reach out to Klamath too, which is close to us. Maybe they have some. Not sure if their rates would equal. I don't know how much it fluctuates. But
And I was just trying to think about this rate sheet that we're producing right now that is supposed to be used for this year. So my first thought, at first I was thinking, okay, Shanti and Sarah Lee, you guys are special producers, right? So like maybe it makes sense to come up with like real basic sheet for like your typical livestock producer in the region, and then you guys come in under the special case. But I mean, it's October basically already, and the only confirmed depredations that we know of for this year so far are yours. So rather than doing like a generic rate sheet that would apply to most livestock producers, maybe it actually does make sense for this year to structure this around your specific case.
Things get hungry in the winter.
Okay.
I mean, I see right now, everything, there's deer running around, there's fawns to eat, there's stuff like that. And then when food becomes more scarce, things migrate. I foresee them having more problems come snow than maybe during those summer months, unless I'm wrong.
And did we ask Aaron about that or hear anything about that? Like whether things depredations they go up or down seasonally?
So I get the alerts. They seem to be fairly consistent. One depredation has been coming through every 3 to 4 weeks. Right now, it's still up in Northeast counties. Every time I get alert, I'm like, oh, it's the shoots again. And I will just caution that Sarah Lee can actually participate in her depredation reimbursement conversation and voting. You can participate in the general rate funds, but you can't participate in your very specific depredation.
So then we have to worry about what you kind of said with Sarah Lee stating her own this year, her own reimbursements. That's going to be
when we get to the special case thing.
So if Ashante and Sarah Lee or Ashante or Sarah Lee want to, so the way it works is a rancher can request a depredation reimbursement. Then I'm guessing you're going to come before us and say like, we'd like to apply for depredation. At that point, they can come before the committee, say how much they're depredated. I mean, you can say these are going rates. Does this work with you? If there's any under category I, any considerations taken effect above fair market rate value of what this committee has established, and we, let's hear it. Some general form of that. That's going to happen in the winter time. So
you'll be on the presenter end. You won't be able to vote as a committee member on your specific.
We only have to make one.
Yeah.
Your specific claim, but
under Section D, right?
But
I think
Sarah Lee can participate in this part where we're trying to set like overall generic.
And I think it would so a couple of things I want to just flag here. One is the time, 7:25. Our next item of business is an important one that we punted from the last one, which is the 2 business representatives that need to come on to make up the full committee, we do submit our committee membership information to the state prior to applying for our grants. It's not required that we have the full 7 committee makeup, but they strongly encourage it. We can have a placeholder in there, but only temporarily. So we do need to determine those other 2 business representatives at some point in the near future. And then I think it makes sense for this committee to determine a process for determining rates, so that next year we're not just starting afresh on the rates, even though we know we only have 1 depredation. I'm not sure just having that 1 depredation is a reason not to kind of establish that process for establishing those rates. Now you guys know what needs to happen with the time we have within this committee. We can try to squeeze 2 committee meetings in before we have to apply for the grant, but honestly, with the timing, I think we are looking at, you know, realistically 1 more committee meeting before we apply for the grants. Now I'll do all the grant applying paperwork, so you guys don't have to do that in the committee, but like we're gonna, deep discussion next time is preventative measures, since that's gonna take up a lot. So, and then also if there's a depredation and they want to apply, then they'll come before that committee. We could try to have another short committee in between, but realistically speaking, I think we're looking at 1 more committee meeting and discussing the like deep topic of preventative measures. So just wanted to throw that all out there. Okay.
Well, then let's not like, I don't think we should put like the heiferettes in there or whatever, but I think that you should call and see if you can get some market reports that maybe have other categories that are more applicable to like butchered weight animals. That makes sense?
Sort of. Again, I don't really speak the language too much. So
well, I guess like when I'm looking at this thing, so calves are really easy. They're here. We got the 600-pound weight. When you like look at that, when you look at these market reports, I'm going to show you the market report.
I think Ethan showed it to me too. I saw it a little bit.
So it looks like this. So they got 249 heads what they sold last Monday. Breaks out. It's pretty clunky, but 300, 400 they didn't have any. So,
so this is what they look like.
700.
And to see what we're talking about, we're like 600-pound animals. So that's 600 to 700 because nothing sold 500 to 600. So we went with the high end, and that's like
250. Yep. Okay.
Right. And so that's how you're just gonna find that. But our problem is like, you know, these are yearlings, which is what we've got here. You've got yearlings, so you've got 900 pounds. So that makes sense. You're at $2.30 a pound.
Yeah.
But when you get to butcher weight, there's nothing on this that's like an actual butcher weight animal, like a butcher weight steer that's at 1,200 pounds.
What's that right there? What's the butcher cows?
Those are butcher cows, and butcher cows are like they're moving along. They're often old. They're
so they don't fall into this butcher animal. And is it not there just because they didn't have them for that particular market?
I don't really know. See what I mean? That's why I'm like trying to come up with.
So maybe if you guys could describe the category versus, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I can reach out to you guys individually. We can't have a quorum meet again, but I could call up Ethan or Johnny or Sarah or all of you individually, and Donna too if you want. Not trying to exclude, and be like, I'm looking at the live auctions from June 1st, October 1st, December, January 1st, and these are the categories I'm seeing. I don't know how else to do it without, I don't know the better process.
Or would one of you committee members be willing to be Jen's, like she calls you in
go-to person
in a few weeks, and just like, with these categories, how do I get these numbers? Whatever.
And then I can send out emails like, Ethan and I talked, and this is what we've done based on this. And then if there's any flags, speak your piece type thing.
I mean, I feel like if we get the categories that we want, and we agree that Central Oregon livestock is probably our kind of data set, like where we draw the data from. And we have, provision I for, like justify your special case. And maybe we can move on from this item at this point? Or
So it sounds like the one sticking point is kind of the difference between butcher animal and cows, which is not showing up on the auction site. So would it make sense, again, I don't know this, but would it make sense just to be like strictly category of weight of what they sell, or there's several different categories within weight sets?
The weights, what the animal is at the weight.
Okay.
That matters.
But we don't know all the classifications for what they're selling. Is that
they just didn't sell the one classification that we don't have yet.
Which
all
is,
the other classifications were here.
Okay, what's the one they didn't list? The butcher
animal.
Okay.
But finding a quarterly market report, you might get that.
And it would probably be called butcher animal.
No.
It
would be called like a steer at like something at 1,200 pounds is what you're kind of looking for.
They just went up being to the sale yard. They just either sell it as you tell it a rough age, and they'll either say if it's a steer of that age, they honestly don't have a classification for it. They've never had a classification for like a butcher ready steer in the market, because most people have sold them before that to a packing or a feedlot. So that's why there's all these different prices for like 300, 400, 400, 500, 500. That's because most people sell them in those sizes in this area.
So based off of the
feeder cow or a feeder, like a feeder?
Yeah, it's a feeder cow. That's probably the closest they have to a butcher animal. The only reason I was saying heiferette is because that adds value to an unbred. So instead of just a butcher animal, a heiferette is a higher value butcher animal because it's got breeding potential. And that's why I was saying heiferette there's a price, because it's a higher price than anything else you're going to get in that weight category. Does that make sense?
So maybe ferret then?
And I mean, are heiferettes being purchased? Not
We
the
just
butcher.
agree on a
They're
price.
being purchased to be added to someone else's.
Yeah, they're unbred.
How much does he want it to be?
Sized, breed ready
That's
cows.
just the total.
Yeah.
You wanted 240 a pound, right, for the butcher animal? Because that's what you came up with?
230.
And you said 165, why don't we just meet in the middle?
Oh, we're just trying to find a category so Jen can go back and.
Because it all, so that.
We're talking about approximately $2 a pound is the middle.
We can throw a number up for now.
Yeah.
And we're gonna,
So I'm gonna calculate that at $1,500 around $2 a pound. That's meeting roughly in the middle of what we're talking about here. When I go look at the reports, I'm gonna look at heiferette if it's there, because that's the higher value one in this category.
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay.
And butcher animals are 900 to 1,200 pounds. Sorry to ride you a bit.
It's your job. That's what I'm here for. Okay. Great. And then we're comfortable with the other categories. Now, the one thing we didn't talk about is dogs, working animals.
Other small animals?
Would that be just under other small animals?
Market rate or purchase price?
Yeah.
With proof. It's just.
Yeah, but if you like bred it and trained it yourself, like that's kind of hard.
That is tricky.
It seems like it would come in under any other, prove it somehow. Like, oh, well, my dog is like this breed and it is a working dog, and if I was to replace it, it would cost this much. So I didn't necessarily buy it for this much, but it would cost this much to replace it.
And you can find the dogs. They sell dogs at Red Bluff, so you can get working dog prices. Maybe not guardian dogs. I don't know much about those, but I know working dogs you can get prices off of Red Bluff sales. So
I can ask Sunny, because I also really none of these 3 counties put in working dogs. So I wonder if that's maybe as happened basis.
Right.
Because it's interesting that none of them have that in here.
It just hasn't been an issue yet.
and then maybe this provision I says any producer who feels their livestock or dog or working dog are worth more than fair market value can provide a
If I put working animal, is there anything else besides a dog that works?
People use guardian.
Yield.
Donkeys, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
We're good leaving that for now.
Do we need to put any injuries? Because I saw these sites have injury stuff.
Well, they put a set rate. That's what Walla Wah put. I think they're the only ones who put injured.
Vet
Oh,
bill.
non-lethal, I think.
Right, so yeah, what do you,
Vet bill. So you should receive your vet bill. I don't know.
injured animals are on a case-by-case basis? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because, I mean, it's an injured animal might recover, and an injured animal might, only recover.
If you have an injured animal that you put down,
So
but the wolf didn't kill it, so then.
yeah, you kill it.
It's gray area.
We'll put case by case basis. I feel like this is a good starting point. I'll try to do this in a working doc in January to the group. If I have questions, I'll reach out to any three of you individually. Donna, if you want me to reach, I'm not trying to be exclusionary.
No, that's fine because
This will be in the meeting
I'm not
notes,
up
and
with
you
this.
all can chew on this
Yeah.
for the next, month or two
Yeah,
as well.
when I send out the draft meeting notes, you guys are free to provide feedback, and if that feedback is like on consideration, I mean, meeting minutes are meeting minutes, but to put forward for future considerations. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing then.
Okay, and then move on to the business representatives discussion. So coming out of the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the process. We talked a little bit about potential business, categories of business people. And Jen has added to that, and also people have even started throwing out, specific potential nominees. So maybe Jen, could you kind of recap for us what the process looks like right now as we're thinking about it?
So the process is, and this is true for any committee meeting or any committee for Deschutes County. Deschutes County's rule of government is that everything is a recommendation to the board. So in this particular process for two business representatives, there is no set guidelines or standards from the state of what those business representatives need to fall under, but is up to this committee to recommend, I couldn't come with the word, recommend two business representatives. At that point, I will then bring, hopefully with one committee member with me, go before the board with the committee's recommendation to the board. And then the board, there's three members clearly, Commissioner Chang, but we have Commissioner DeBowen and Commissioner Adair, and we'll go before the board there to provide the committee's recommendations on the business representatives. We'll say, typically for non-controversial issues, the board, we're split politically, but the board typically for non-controversial issues does take the committee recommendations. There's definitely at least one other commissioner here who feels very differently than some other commissioners about how this committee should operate. So you don't have to take that into consideration. It's just some background knowledge for you guys on where what the process might look for the board discussion on how they opt to choose the recommendation of the committee members. But you guys can start at whatever basis you want, and then if the board approves your recommendations, then I'll reach out to them, and I think probably actually I'll reach out beforehand to make sure they're interested before we go through the process, unless there's already been done. I think some of you individually have done some outreach to maybe some business representatives. So if we already know somebody's interested, then we can just put that forward before the board if the committee agrees on that. But ideally, we can come up with some solid recommendations from here. We do not have to do an application process. We don't have to do an interview process, but we do have to have board approval of those recommendations. And just for additional background, every one of you are here with a unanimous approval from the board. So they do take into consideration, it's weird saying they while you're sitting here, but they do take into consideration a lot what, a group consensus is on how to proceed with committees.
Can you review for us what categories?
Yep, and I just added this into the meeting minutes, so you're gonna see it or on the agenda on the back of the first page. Are all the categories. Now there was a couple of categories that several of you emailed back that were more than one of you emailed back of interest in, which was tourism, livestock owners, livestock producers, large animal vets. I think those were all the more than two or more of you were interested in those categories.
Feedlot owner? Or
Livestock owner or producer. I just had it pulled up earlier. But any categories open for consideration.
Livestock producer, I thought that was what John and I were.
But it's not, but if they own the business, it's still a business owner, so there was no stipulation on what they
no prohibition about adding more livestock.
A couple of there. Fence, so.
Whether they want to join.
I got 3 no's and 1 maybe, so.
I got 2 no's.
Did you?
Oh, really?
I have one other maybe, but.
I reached out on the eco-tours. I went to Wanderlust Tours and both Austin Daly, and he said any one of 4 would be glad to be interviewed or whatever it takes to be nominated. They were interested. Austin Daly out of Wanderlust Tours.
And they do have to be from Deschutes County, correct?
Yeah.
There's not stipulation for that, but I think there's not specific stipulation. I would say that there is a solid case from anyone representing Central Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, if your business, if you did most of your business in Deschutes County, but you lived in Powell Butte, I think that'd be okay. Because we're picking someone as a business representative, so like it's more important where their business is located than where they live.
And
I prefer to have somebody who live nearby.
I did reach out, even though I'm being retired from the veterinary profession for a while, and our Central Oregon vet meeting has not been livable or viable since COVID, but I did try to reach out to a large animal vet. I went and he never returned the call. So I don't know if he didn't get the message or.
Ask which veterinary place, which.
It's Bend Veterinary.
Bend Veterinary.
Yeah. Steve Pappas.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
Okay.
That was my other thought. Bend Animal Hospital. Yeah.
But I left a message only with his receptionist, so whether it got to his desk, but that was over a week ago.
So that's one of the other vets there, Matt Wesley, he said no.
He did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm friends with Matt, like, I guess so.
No soft talking that? It was a hard no?
He thought about it, he's like, no.
Can I rewind for a second?
Yeah.
What were the categories that multiple committee members expressed interest in? Yeah. And then can I just check, are there others on this list or not on this list that people feel like are important categories, to consider?
So I'll call them out by name. Johnny was interested, feedlot owners, livestock producers, feed and farm store owners, large animal vet, and a herding dog breeder. And then I think Ethan was the only other one who responded and said he's interested, tourism, supply chain for farmers, large animal vet, resource management. And then Donna replied to me, letting me know that she'll reach out to someone from Wanderlust Tours. So that's all the feedback I received.
So pretty much every category on this list, somebody thought was worth exploring.
Except for the last 2.
Okay. Any
and real estate.
Any objections to scratching those last 2 categories?
And real estate was the other one.
Author, researcher, writer, they'd have to be pretty on the nose, I think, for
subject specific.
We to be candid, we did have, so we had the application period for this committee was extended many times because we had a lot of people interested and applied, many people who were friends of wolf cohibition. We were having a very hard time filling your 2 positions, which is owner or manager of livestock, and I necessarily falls under that, but she was interested in being considered for both categories. with the Friends and Cohabitation with Wolves, there were a couple actually who've done extensive writing and submitted some writing material. So I do have some base names to go off of. No other reference checks, or if they were, none of those people were selected to be interviewed. We did a rating system for those interviews. So we haven't talked to them, they haven't been vetted, but there was several writers.
I'm fine with leaving that open there. There's a door. Sorry, leaving that door open for that topic, you know, authors, researchers, writers in the list, if that's the case, if there's people interested that are.
And what I can do, if you guys want, I can redact their personal information, but share their resume or their writings via email, so you can see that. And then if you're interested in contemplating that category as a business representative, then maybe we could do that via, you know, I can send you via email the redacted information, personal information, but the materials that they submitted, and if we have a group consensus or majority consensus, we could consider one of those via email, through an email process.
Well, I think that there are many categories of interests. There's, you know, community members have talked to a variety of people, so somehow we gotta like put all the people who are interested on a list and select.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, those applications could be just part of that.
Yeah, I think it's part of the process.
You don't have to pick one of those.
No.
You just have a look.
No, but if you want to look to see, you know, people have all different writing styles and backgrounds and passions, so it can give you a flavor of who that person is.
And we could, I mean, for anyone that you all have identified as a potential, we could ask them to fill out an application too. So that we're just like looking at the same thing for all the people, potential people. You know, it's where it's kind of
Baseline.
yeah. Then we're not, then at least it's apples to apples.
There's another category I didn't think of right now. I think that could be open is a wolf biologist, like an Aaron Bod as a representative. I'm not sure if there's a conflict of interest with who they work with, but
most biologists are like public employees, and
so they probably can serve.
They wouldn't necessarily fill up a business. I mean, there's biologists who.
Kind of meant to be on there would be really good, because the whole injury thing could be like, well, that's gonna cost that much to fix. That would be a good insight on something like that. I mean,
They could grill Aaron Bod about, you know, their methodology for determining, you know, whether it's a wolf death or not.
I'll follow up with Steve as well.
Okay, well, maybe if we'll attack from both sides.
Yeah,
and I basically just asked if he knew of a large animal vet in Deschutes County that would be interested. I didn't direct it right at him.
I do the hard ass, Donna.
I guess. The roundabout way, but yeah, he's the only one I sort of knew just from COBMA meetings that we've had. That's been 3 years ago, so and most small animal vets show up at those. So I really do not know those in the county. Otherwise I would have tried harder.
So do we want to set a time frame around this? I mean,
So what I'm hearing, what I've taken notes on so far, it sounds like there's potentially one vet who you both know. So you're gonna
He'll probably say no, but we can try.
I mean,
tell them about the free pizza.
You had
I
a
got
couple
one
people
guy, there's one guy with a trucking company, but he's really down to earth. They own livestock. It's not a lot, but he's very knowledgeable and stuff like that. He gave me a maybe. And then another one, you know, just has a small little hobby farm, but he's, you know, super involved in the community and that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
it was also a maybe.
and Donna found like a tourism company that is potentially interested. So I mean, if we set up time frame around this, okay, you all can work your people, and if they're interested, then we want an application by X time.
We don't need an application.
But we were just talking about how if we want to consider some of the business people who submitted for, kind of
authors.
ally coexistence category, then it would be kind of nice to have applications from anyone else we're considering so that we can at least be a consistent process.
I'll have to reach out to HR. So it's a very specific process for the initial committee member through HR that they manage, they intake the applications.
Right.
That process is not required for the 2 business representatives. And then that's like open and I have to publicize it. Now, if we just ask them to submit resumes or a written 1-pager or a written 2 paragraphs on why they're interested in what their background is, that would probably be equivalent about what I'm going to share with you. So for the application process, they filled out a form. You all saw it. You filled out the formal application. Some people chose to submit supplemental work and writings. That was what I was going to share with you with those who submitted writings. So to not have to go the official county notification application process, because that's not required.
Okay.
But maybe the ask everyone puts out is please submit 2 paragraphs to 1-pager writing of why you're interested in what your background is for the committee to consider. Now you can soft talk that because you're like begging them to join, but like, can you just give us a quick background on who you are and like why you're interested? And then I would also just, while it seems it's been a little time consuming for us and we're getting set up, you can also sell the fact that at most we're gonna ask to meet on a quarterly basis for 2 hours. So we're looking at 8 hours a year of time commitment, basically. So if you frame it that way, the bigger picture, it maybe seem a little bit less overwhelming. And you can also provide your background. We really thought this was gonna be political and we thought we were gonna have a lot of reporters here all the time. It's clearly just a small working group. So there's food. I'm just trying to give you some selling points to get you there.
Until the slaughter starts this week.
Try to make it slow.
So does that work? So I'll say in the meeting minutes, each committee member who knows somebody who's interested is going to reach out, ask them to submit just a couple paragraphs in writing about their background and why they're interested in serving on the committee. All committee members, Jen will send out for distribution to all committee members. You can review it. We can do some sort of ranking system. I'll come up with it and easy rank your top.
So you said you were going to get back with the people that applied.
I'm not going to. What I'm going to do is I physically have their applications in my office. So I'm just going to scan the writing samples for you guys, for the people who submitted writing samples under the researcher or writing, our author portion. Not every application there is what I'm hearing. There were somebody expressed potentially looking at people who may have authored or written material or research with the background depth knowledge on wolves. I have that information, so I will.
But what about other business owners that applied to be on that?
There were very, very few. Okay. So
it seems like if there were any, even one.
There was one. We've talked about the one gentleman who is there is one other gentleman who we declined to interview based because he didn't specifically follow under owner or operator of livestock. He is a consultant for livestock. Is it John Nash? What's Steve Nash, the Oregon Cattlemen Association? Todd Nash.
I called who's done some work with Todd Nash, who's rancher out in Wallowa County.
And the president of the Oregon Stockmen's Cattlemen's Association. He had him as a reference, so I called him. He recommended him, but confirmed that he wasn't an owner or manager of livestock. So I did look on his webpage. The webpage, there was no real content on there except for to say that he's a consultant for livestock. That was all I got out of the whole thing. I didn't actually talk to him because he didn't legally qualify under the category of owner or manager.
What's his name?
I have to go look. It's in my office. I can shoot you the name individually.
Basically, why don't we just go through these categories? Like, pull the stack back out, go through these categories. Anyone who fits one of these categories, like let's share those.
I think it's gonna be that last category, basically. I've done, I haven't looked through the applications recently, but I went through them many times.
The guy going with the bar, I'm not sure whether he would classify as a tourism business or not, but I mean, kind of a tourism business, but.
I've got more people.
I mean, we could,
talk
I mean,
to.
like if we err on the side of sharing.
If anyone looks within that category whatsoever that applied in the previous, I will redact any of their personal information and share it with the group. I'm not gonna reach out to them until the group has said expressed interest. Then at the same time, you guys will individually reach out to people that you may, based on this discussion, may fit here. And should we do end of November deadline, gives you 2 months to sweet talk some people.
And any yeses, they should submit their own two paragraph, and then we all
Yeah,
get a look at it.
yeah.
Why you're interested.
Completely informal. Like I said, you guys, no one was required to even apply for this committee to do anything more than the application. So, but we won't have them do an application, so we don't have to go through that official notification channel.
We submit that to you, Jan?
Submit it to me, and then at the end of November, I will send out one email to the group with a PDF with all of our, hopefully all of our representatives. You guys can review it, and then I'll give you a deadline to rate your candidates. And then we'll do some sort of scoring system and say, okay, it looks like these are our top 2 candidates. I'll reach out to them. If they're interested, then we can proceed to go before the board with the recommendation. I'll pick somebody from the committee to, if anyone wants to volunteer to come before the board, let me know in your email, and then, you know, ideally get one person here in front of the committee. It's not or in front of the commissioners. It's really low key. It's not a big deal. It'll probably be a 10-minute discussion. And then if they do that, then we can potentially have people at our next meeting. Does that process work for everyone?
And we're thinking our next meeting will be
January, February, yeah.
If we fail to get 2 representatives, we can still go through the grant process. It's just not recommended.
At some point we have to, so I have to submit to Sunny. And I had this conversation with her in January last year when we were trying to form the committee before, try to apply for grant. Anyway, long story, but so I'm not super fresh in my mind, but I was like, we're in the process of forming the committee. We're setting up interviews. She's like, if we weren't ready at the time, so we didn't go, but she's like, you can go forward, but you will need to submit. I think it was like before the grants were dispersed or something like that. We had to have the full committee at some point, but we could have gone forward with our application saying, you know, we're in the final stages of getting the final committee members up. Yeah. So we could, so yes, that was a long-winded way to get to yes, but
okay. I just want to make sure in case.
I want to get people that you all are excited about, but like if none of the folks that you're talking to are willing to, you know, get to yes, I'll find people.
Right.
Yeah. Like we will find people to wrap up. Nice people. We'll work with it. Sweet. It's 8 o'clock.
that was quickly.
Oh.
Yeah. Do we have, there's nobody else online, right? So
Nope. We just have to have it on for recording purposes.
We don't have to have a public, you know, so no public comment.
No.
We were hoping to get to a committee name discussion, maybe come up with a cute acronym or something, but I think that can wait. We have a name, it's just very long and clunky.
I've just been going Wolf Committee.
Yeah.
We want to stick with that weekend.
So in terms of next steps, the next meeting will likely be in January or February. Potential agenda topics, recommended grant fund applications for preventative measures and depredation activities. And I'm guessing we'll also just kind of double check on the rate sheet that we just, you know, did a very rough first draft of. Hopefully we'll have 2 additional committee members and one option for a presentation would be a committee member from another established county wolf committee.
So specifically, I think it would be helpful to have somebody come in and talk about preventative measures. I have to go look at the name. It's either Kirk County or Walla Walla County. I talked to one lady, she's the wife of a commissioner there, and they've been doing preventative measures for years now. So she had a lot of ideas on what they've done. I wouldn't say it has covered all the topics of what we've heard in this from what Sunny shared and what Aaron Bott shared last time. So maybe it might be better to reach out to a broader thing. But you know, there's a lot to cover in preventative measures of what we can cover. And so I feel like that's gonna take up the bulk amount of our discussion and I wanna make sure, I guess, you guys, based on what you've heard, how do you feel about your knowledge base on what you think you wanna apply for, and who would it be valued to bring somebody in to talk about other preventative measures? And if so, do you have an idea of who? If not, I can look around. There are people, I know Donna has some contacts with people who do a lot of this, who give trainings and seminars around the Northwest. There's other committee members in other counties who've applied for preventative funds. I could work with Sunny to see if one of the counties has a more diverse portfolio of grant submissions for preventative measures, and see if we could get maybe someone from that county to come in. There's a lot of options we can do. I just want to make sure we're meeting the needs of what you guys want for background educational knowledge.
It sounds to me like that's going to be a big meeting in general for getting all of our ducks in a line in row. Saying is for getting ready for when all those applications come in. I think it's probably better spent getting everything organized, like we're signing off on our rates, signing off on what we're going to provide. You know.
So do you have? So I guess the question.
Not a presenter. I don't think we need a presenter at that meeting. I think it's going to be too busy.
So you guys feel like as a committee, you have the background knowledge to know what you want to request for preventative measures by dollar amount and what types?
Not at all.
No.
I think it'd be better to like soon get that information from the people that have done it before. So the people in other counties and maybe someone that Donna knows, especially if they're like, if we can apply for doing like a seminar or something, like that should be something that they submit. Like, what does that even cost to have them come and do a seminar, and have Aaron Bott give you like a real rundown of all the things that he knows, and like what the cost of those things are, so that we have that and we can just like approve it when we get here. We could do like some little emailing.
So I'm going to manage a little expectations on my time management skills. This committee takes up about 5% of my time, and I have some really big projects to work on. So I don't have a ton of staff hours to provide to this, and I am the only staff person. So a lot of this, I'm not trying to shoot that down, but I just want to manage expectations of what I can actually intake and do. And I have a pretty solid list of what I'll be working on already. And I think that's a really big discussion, and there's a lot to take in. Even when I was trying to form this last year, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with someone from Wallowa County. And I don't have the ability, I don't have 40 hours to commit to doing that between now and the next committee. So just wanted to manage that expectation. Sometimes in committee, staff can provide a ton of support, and sometimes they're here to take minutes, and I'm kind of somewhere in between. But I have two really big projects that I'm working on right now.
You're carrying us, Jen. We appreciate you. Doing everything.
I'm not trying to shoot that down, but also just manage a little bit of expectations on that.
So one thing that hasn't come up is the workshop that Donna's group is working on with.
Maybe I can make some contacts there, because I'm
so can I just check? There's going to be significant focus on preventative measures at that workshop, right?
Oh yes.
Will it be recorded?
You know, I don't think so, but I could find out.
Or will there be like notes or?
Well, I will take notes, but that's not going to be good enough. But I should find that out.
There's a lot of presentations from people with a lot of experience on preventative measures, and they can record that.
Yeah.
Then that's some of what we're talking. You know what Sarah Lee was just asking for. I mean, like it may not be the complete information, but
yeah, because there's certainly going to be at least 2 ranchers that have adopted sort of newer methods that have worked for them, one from Oregon and one from Montana.
Do you feel like you have time to gather that type of stuff? Like, the methods and then what the payout has been in other places?
Well, it may be presented at the workshop possibly. I don't know because we're sort of facilitating it, but working circle, I can contact the executive director, working circle, and find out.
But I
If
mean,
they're
if
gonna
we're,
cover that ahead of time and maybe record it.
but if we're assigning outside committee work to some committee members, like one of these guys, or one of these three might be willing to work with Jen on, that rate information, and that maybe that could be your independent, outside of committee meeting work project is kind of putting together some of the prevention measure information. Is that a reasonable thing to ask, or is that too big?
Well, does it have to be organized on a computer or anything like that? That's where I fail, but
Like type up in an email? So
yeah.
the other proposal I could say is
just written. Like, I don't think you need to like make a PowerPoint or anything.
Yeah, good. Right.
Sarah Lee, is that what you were what you were asking?
Yeah, it just seems like that's kind of your wheelhouse. So it seemed like maybe trying to come up with some ideas would be really, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, you can and it can be a living document, right? But if you create a backbone for us, we learned about these things. Here's some background on them, and then as if other committee members are like, hey, I heard over in Jackson County they're also doing this, and we can add to the document. It's kind of like our archive.
I like Sarah Lee's idea. Talk to Aaron, see what's working, and then Sonny was saying that we can apply for grant money for prevention, and if we don't use it, we can give it back. So we might as well apply for what we can get, and then if we don't use it,
maybe we don't even need to worry about it. Why don't we just apply for $100,000 and see what?
Let me look and I can look and see that question. If like I think we have to put specific. So last year when I was trying to do this, the lady I can't remember from what county, she's like, just put in $3,000 for flaggery. And this is what I do remember. What she said is, you can use it for other preventative measures than what you applied it for, but if you don't use it all, then you have to give it back. So I will talk to Sonny to see
you do have to
how much of wiggle room.
Yeah. Too.
But you can, if you only spend $500 on flaggery, but you spent $500 on educational material, but you applied $1,000 for flaggery, then you can just in your end of year report say that. Now, that was for $1,000. So like, if we're going after big funds, which I think we have the potential to do, I'm not sure how much wiggle room is there. So I can check with Sonny on that. The other thing I could offer up is we could do like a 1 hour, I'd still have to publicly notice, but like a 1 hour Zoom meeting just with somebody from another county who's had a wide variety of preventative measure grant applications to just talk to them to flesh out, to get, ideas rolling without having any in particular individual try to spend hours doing individual research. I think we have a basis of like, carcass pitch, flaggery, possibly drones, or possibly range riders. We've heard a lot of common themes between Sonny and what Aaron and Ashante was talking about. But like, as far as touching, I saw it here at Klamath County, but like a dollar amount for the drone. No idea. Right. So like our learning curve is going to be steep pretty quickly here.
And I mean, it has to be locally driven too. I mean, a drone is a cool idea, but who's going to learn how to use it, and who's gonna fly it when it needs to be flown and stuff. You want to, for something like that, we would want to have a plan around the grant request too.
We could just go with the process of like figuring out like bringing somebody in for a seminar. We've done no educational outreach to other ranchers and farmers about this program and what could be available to them. So we could focus like a heavy educational outreach for the first year and work on really some of these bigger preventative measures for the second year. That's what
gonna mention, I think there should be some money in there for letting people know we exist.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're available.
Okay, so for
we ask for money for research.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we know these things now, and we think this is really interesting, but like nobody has the bandwidth to like figure this out. You know, figure out where.
I think one of the things that more than one other county has done is brought somebody in, like a consultant, basically, to help them form a more strategic plan on preventative measures.
Well,
And again, you can do a big pool of money, say a consultant's they're gonna come in for 2 days, we're gonna offer it up to any rancher, we're gonna use the county building, they can come in and get educated. We're gonna estimate that's gonna cost $10,000. If that costs $8,000, then we can buy $2,000 worth of flaggery or start printing off brochures and, you know, like. So these are all things, but like, how do we narrow this down? Or do we wanna try to meet twice before? Basically, last year, I think applications were due March 15th. So you would have to be like January and then another meeting in early March. And I know you guys are busy, you're tired, it's a lot. So
I'm not even gonna be here really much, sorry.
Oh, I heard I heard it from across the room. You know.
Also, I was just gonna add, from Working Circle, I'm not sure who printed it up, but they gave out some really nice pamphlets that go through all the preventative measures for ranches, livestock owners, and preventative measures. And I have one old copy at home, and I could get more for us. And
do they have if they have electronic copies? You know, like electronic.
You know, I don't know these.
You got a physical one, we can make electronic.
Yeah, but I could look into that because it.
You can mail me a physical one and I can scan it.
Okay.
And you can just mail it to this address.
Okay.
Yeah, or if they've got it in PDF, you can.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
So in the interest of time.
Yeah, I think one key question in what Jen was just asking is, are people interested in meeting again in between? You know, maybe like we could meet in between.
Can we determine that in the next
Now
meeting?
and
See how far
January.
we get on the next meeting?
Or we could meet, or we could do a January, February.
I could try to schedule a meeting like first, second week of January. So then if we decide we need a second meeting, that would give us enough time. And then even if you can't be
January and then maybe
and then
another one.
like, yeah, so like first or second week of January for our next meeting. And then based on that meeting, we could do one at like end of February. And you know, maybe not everyone can make it, but if we can get the majority of people here to make it, we could do that route.
Is that better? So January sounds like pretty solid, but like, would it be better to do January, February, or would people be interested in November, January? Any preferences?
I'm gone for most of January and all of it.
I'm gone half of November.
Sure. Okay.
December.
In the first week of December.
Early December is not, people haven't flown the coop yet.
Should we also do the pulpit aim to meet first week of December and then come up with a game plan from there? Okay, so for the first week of December, for our next meeting, so 2 questions. One, do you know if Ashante and you do want to apply for a grant? For the depredation?
Definitely.
Okay, so we will invite Ashante to come because we know that one solid grant recommendation is going to happen pretty like by the first week of December. Potentially there could be another depredation the following 3 weeks, but hopefully not. So at least we have our depredation discussion set a little bit. I clearly won't be able to do the average. I'll come up with the average rates of the first day of each quarter of this year, and then we'll just base it off of that. And then the discussion. And then we'll try to do the 2 additional committee members via email so that we don't take up too much committee time. So for the preventative measures side, what resource or any do you want here? Or do you want just to stick with a group discussion?
if we're gonna do it as early December, then maybe we can stick with the kind of proposed agenda. I mean,
a committee member from another county to talk about, and I can try to find one that has as a diverse preventative measure application as possible.
Could we get like, sorry, could we get sample applications from Sunny? Like, what did other people apply for last year?
I'm sure that's like public record, so yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'm wondering about is there's stuff like putting on a workshop that is stuff that the committee can plan, you know, and then we get money and like, you know, county staff or somebody like makes that happen, right? But then there are things like, I mean, even Flattery or like, you know, like a range rider or a guard dog, that's a ranch specific thing, right? Like you have to have the ranger who wants that in order to apply for it. So, you know, one of the things that I'm scratching my head around is how do we, I mean, basically that needs to come from the livestock community.
So do we wonder if Ashante has an idea? Because he was telling us about all preventive measures he's used so far.
I mean, he's got all that stuff on, like he's got the collars and the tracking. Is there like an add-on? You know, like, oh, if I did this, if I've already got this, you know, this whole setup, then the add-on would be X. And that's something that only he knows. Like so somehow, like individual ranchers, for a lot of the preventative measures, individual ranchers have to be involved, like in what we put forward. So like, how do we do that part?
So I'm wondering. Again, I'll go back to the question of, do we want our first year to really focus on engagement from the livestock community and education from the livestock community and really come up with more of a committee plan for preventative strategies year on year? And then, you know, build in a budget for having a workshop of some sort. Some of these preventive measures that we've learned from Ashante, and like he knows some of these costs and kind of throwing in generic costs in there.
Or if there's $1.2 million available and we are already having depredations, do we want to actually try and, you know, in the places that we know that there's problems, do we want to try to do some of this stuff?
Do we know those places though, besides the shop?
You guys have already bought a bunch of the stuff, right?
Yeah, but like for instance, like all the collars and stuff, that's all leased. We have to like buy it again next year.
Right.
Oh, right.
There we go. You know the cost. That's
So,
then we can apply for that cost.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's super.
That would be a great thing to
super
apply
easy
for,
to just roll over, right? And I mean, you know, Johnny, you're operating in that same area, right? So I mean, are there things?
That's why I was trying to see if there was, you know, money that's not used up, or you're not applying just for, like where you were saying, well, we're gonna have $10,000 for this workshop. Well, maybe it only costs $2,000, and we can use the other $8,000 for other preventative measures.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that is not ranch based, I think, is just a work. Like the workshop is basically the only thing I can think of. Everything else has to happen on a specific ranch, right?
Well, there's outreach. I'm not sure if there's cost in outreach, but like we actually need to connect with the ranchers to even let them know that this is available. Maybe that's buying ads on TV or radio or Central Oregon Cattlemen or Ranchers Magazine, which is, you know, some of the methods that we use for the outreach here.
But I mean, you know, counties were applying for, it sounds like last year they let counties put in up to $100,000 worth of requests. Like there's a lot of, you know, an outreach campaign, you know, $20,000-$30,000 tops.
Well, I think viable dollars to go after, because Ashante's farm is going to have huge priority because they're the lone depredation, is if you're leasing those collars year on year, we should go after those funds. I'm guessing that's going to be a hefty chunk. I thought he said somewhere around 20 to 30,000 for that. I can't remember, but like that's a hefty chunk to go after. And then we can say, oh, and this neighboring farm has X amount. So like we could put some solid numbers, I'm not sure we can get to 100,000, maybe we can, solid numbers behind high priority farms or ranches based on preventative measures that have known to work, but that are gonna be new costs coming up for this year. Put $10,000 for the work. I mean, we can get to 50,000 pretty quickly. I would, just from applying for a lot of other grant applications where we go quantity over quality, and want to make sure, you know, like if we have something to back it up without spending too much time, again, I want to be really cognizant of the time that we're at right now, but.
No, but you know, I would encourage people to, you know, ranchers in the high risk areas to think big. You know, think big, you know, and that doesn't just mean like, oh, like try and grab money. Think big, like what's something that could be really impactful that might cost a chunk of change.
Right, because we can apply for it saying, well, this could happen, and then if it doesn't happen, you just give it back.
So what's the process of thinking big, given our time restraint tonight and given our time restraint on our meetings going forward before the grant application? Like how do we get to think big to get behind numbers?
Having a preventative measures discussion in early December,
okay.
I think that gives us some time. You know, like we can start to brainstorm on some stuff, and that gives us some time before March. Even if some, you know, even if some of us are out of the country for a chunk of that time, like if you at least can help us set direction to it, then you know before January, then we can be working on stuff in January and February too.
Well, I'm
and
hoping
maybe we have another meeting, and maybe another meeting is necessary between early December and March.
Okay, so for next meeting, invite Shante first. Come up with a meeting time and date, invite Ashante to come before, apply for the depredation, potentially be prepared to discuss preventative measures, financial cost preventative measures for 2024, at least apply, or at least being able to take those rates for at least one branch, and then have a representative, either application representatives to look at from, or applications for preventative measures from other counties, and potentially somebody from another committee from another county to come and talk to us about preventative measures that we could go after, given where we are at beginning stages of the committee. Is that group consensus?
If we can fit that all, and I mean, does that sound like our early December meeting?
Okay.
Let people go home.
I'm hoping the word will spread on our workshop, because there's supposed to be, to date, it's not final, about 30 people showing up, and possibly 15 or 20 are ranchers.
I mean, is it not full? The registration?
Yeah, it'll be cut off. Is it today, the 26th? I think it is. So we should find out. We should find out soon how many they actually have. This is about last week. They said 30, but some of it's counting me and some of the other people from.
So maybe in this workshop, if you hear specific ranchers from this area speak up and really interested in preventive measures,
right? They
could also be somebody we could bring in to engage with us too.
Yeah, come to our December meeting and tell us, you know, pitch your ideas for preventative projects.
Okay. Somebody just needs to.
Should we adjourn?
Adjourn.
Do we
I motion to adjourn.
Nice. I'll do whatever you say.
So coincidentally, you adjourned at the exact same time of the last meeting. So I think 24 minutes past is our sweet spot.
Sorry. Thank you.
It's good.